Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. I have two very special guests with me here today. These men don't really need an introduction. I have Rick Merlin Levine and Steve Judd, two incredible legendary astrologers that we are so blessed to have as a part of our platform. Today, we are going to be talking about a transit that they say potentially could be our saving grace for this entire year. The other thing is that it's going to enable us to bring some structure into what might feel like a very chaotic time. Lots of amazing opportunities with this. Let's dive in, you guys. First of all, welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. I'm so happy you're back.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I can't speak for Steve. He's still on the other side of the world.
I'm not only on the other side of the world. I'm in the what passes in the UK for the middle of nowhere. But yeah, let's just hope the internet holds out.
All right. The other thing is these two men are hosting a live event in London at the beginning of May. So any of you, we're going to talk about that later at the end, but if you want to meet these guys in person, learn from them in person, along with a whole host of incredible astrologers, and spend some time in an incredible astrological community, that opportunity is coming up. So you can check the show notes for the links, and we're also going to be talking about it more at the end of this podcast. All right, so let's talk about Saturn Sextile Uranus. Why is this a big deal?
Would you like to go first, Rick?
No.
Yeah.
Whoa, the Aries is not going first.
My Cancer moon is acquiescing to the Cancer sun.
Perfect.
We live in chaotic times. We live in what's one of the craziest times of human history. Yeah, underlying all of the drama, we have a sextile between Saturn and Uranus, which is within range now. It's about exact now. It's been brewing for the last month and a half, and it's going to be hanging around for the next 10 months. In my textbook, in my language, a sextile can be summarized as a window of opportunity. It doesn't make things happen, but it brings opportunities for things to happen. And if you take them, you thrive. And if you don't take them, you lose nothing. Saturn and Uranus are not complementary. They don't like each other. They have a history and mythology of cutting bits off of each other.
Important bits.
Important bits, right? They're very macho, very, very male. But it's a sextile. So to my mind, Saturn's going to try and bring a little bit of structure and discipline into the more chaotic and undisciplined side of Uranus, whilst Uranus at the same time is going to be revolutionizing Saturn's boundaries and structures and changing Saturn's rules from concrete and steel into transparent rubber and elastic, so we can bend the rules instead of breaking them and embrace new futures without going completely over the top. So I see it as a lovely aspect, and as Rick says, a beautiful, graceful opportunity for the future.
Okay, let's talk time frame before we go too much further. When is this active?
I'll jump in here because this is occurring 3 times exactly, but as Steve already said, it's already been in play, but it's coming to its first round of crescendo on April 4th. And although we're recording this prior to that, this weekend or that weekend is going to be an incredibly potent and powerful statement of the next 2 exact perfections, the next one being on August 11th, and the third and final one being on January 19th, and that'll be 2026. So this aspect is really, like Steve said, it's an opportunity. Sextiles are cooperation. You know, you can think of a trine as 2 planets that are trine. The energy just flows smoothly because it's the same element, you know, like fire to fire or air to air or water to water. With a sextile, you still have compatibility. The polarity is the same, but here we have the difference is that the elements are different, but they're compatible elements. And so what happens here is that the energy of the restriction, of the holding back of Saturn, and the energy of the explosive electric shock and awe and awakening of Uranus are giving us an opportunity to work with these 2 energies, which, as Steve said, are normally different. And if you go back to 2020, 2021 in particular, That's when Saturn and Uranus were square, and the beginnings of this bifurcation of the old and the new, of the conservative and the progressive, of the holding in of the past and the stability of the status quo, and the craziness and the unknown of the future. These two energies were at total odds. And now we're getting a taste of what happens if these energies actually work together, which seems impossible based upon the current climate, but that's what we're in for.
So we have three exact hits of this transit. Question number one, but don't answer it yet, is this opportunity for harnessing, for bringing structure into chaos and revolutionizing our lives through this very chaotic moment? Is that active all year? And that's question number one. Number two is, what is the difference between the three transits? Like, is this period we're in right now the kickoff where we're sort of getting the storyline introduced to us? What happens in August? And then what happens in January?
I'll jump in here real quickly, and Steve, you can jump in whenever you'd like, because obviously you will. The deal is that, yeah, the three energies are slightly different, but there's the same thing that flows through it. Remember, all of this is leading up to the third and final transit, is basically just a few weeks before the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that people are already talking about in February of 2026. And so it's almost like the Uranus, the trine between Saturn and Uranus, the sextile between Saturn and Uranus, it's almost like that's loosening up Saturn, so that when it joins with Neptune, that's going to be the finale of this whole process. By the time that they sextile the second time this summer in August, Saturn will have moved from Pisces into Aries, and Uranus will have moved from Taurus into Gemini. And so we're getting almost like a glimpse of the future when we have all of this larger shift of Pluto in Aquarius and Neptune in Aries and Uranus in Gemini making sextiles and trine with one another. And so it's culminating in something that we can't even imagine. I mean, we are at right now this, period of March, April, May, June, July, August of this year. We're at a turning point in maybe the most important change in the trajectory of human evolution that we've ever seen. And now that Neptune has touched into Aries, it's pulling our idealistic visions from our dreams. It's like it's plucking them right out of our dreams and throwing them into the creative fires of Aries manifestation. And that's what we're walking into.
I would add to this a couple of things. Yes, we got the Saturn-Uranus thing now, and that's, as Rick so succinctly puts it, that's prepping us for the final Saturn-Neptune conjunction. But immediately after that, there's a one-time Saturn-Pluto sextile, which will be the precursor for a 1 to 2 year long trine from Uranus to Pluto.
Exactly.
Which is my big hope for the long-term future. And you asked me about what the difference is over the three periods. I've formulated my own ideas on this, and it's a generic. It doesn't just relate to this particular aspect, but with most retrogrades, I feel that the first pass brings events, developments, decisions. The second retrograde pass deals with reassessment, reevaluation, reconsideration, retrospect. And the third and final pass is either correcting what we've done wrong the first time or improving on what we've done right the first time. Obviously, if they're changing signs, as they are with the Saturn-Uranus sextile, that adds another dynamic, because the methodology, if you like, of the opportunities are going to change in the middle of the process. So it's very much like a surfboard on a wave.
What do you mean by the methodology is going to change? And then you're talking about August now, right?
Well, Saturn sextile Uranus from Pisces to Taurus is going to be fundamentally different from Saturn sextile Uranus from Aries to Gemini. One is going to be much more proactive, dynamic, assertive, and the other is going to be more reactive and less assertive, I feel. So it's a question of, do we get done? Do we act or do we react? And the timings of when we choose to act as opposed to react. At the moment, most astrologers I know are just looking at the world and going, oh, I'm not going out there. You know, it comes to a point where astrologers are now being seen as the voice of sanity and reason in the world. That's I've never seen this before.
Yeah, I also, the other thing, I mean, Steve brought up something that I've been talking about for years, something, Amanda, that we've spoken about a lot over the last year, and that is what's going on right now is not what's going on. In other words, and I'm not in denial, what's going on is absolutely real, but it's basically feeding a disillusionment. And you know, an illusion isn't something that's wrong. An illusion is something built upon wish fulfillment, as defined by Freud. That a wish fulfillment creates an illusion, and it's like a dream. It's a fantasy. But then Saturn comes in and gives us the opportunity through hard work and discipline to make that dream come true. You know, it's almost like it's almost like Neptune creates this invisible framework or scaffolding that Saturn then allows us to create material reality on. And so this sextile between Saturn and Uranus is shaking Saturn up. I mean, it's basically rattling the cage of what we thought structure was. And it's doing that in an environment where not only, as Steve said, not only is Saturn sextiling Uranus, but Saturn is also going to sextile Pluto, but also Neptune is going to sextile Pluto, all leading into this larger thing of Uranus trining Pluto. Now, that Uranus trine Pluto goes back to the 1960s when Uranus and Pluto were conjoined, and that was the 1960s, was the Uranus Pluto conjunction. And anyone who said, you know, that the 60s were awesome, or that it was powerful, or that something didn't happen or whatever, then we had the Uranus square Pluto in the early 2010s, 2012 to 2015, where we started to see the world fall apart, like in a major way. That was the square. Now we're coming into the trine. We're already getting flavors of it, but it's not matching up with what's going on out there because things are really being rattled. And so the important thing is to accept disillusionment. There's nothing wrong with disillusionment. Disillusionment is what happens when Saturn brings Neptune into the three-dimensional world. It's never as good as we thought it was. What the problem is that when we get mistaken and we think that disillusionment should be discouragement, because courage, you know, cœur, French, is heart. And it's okay to be disillusioned. That's dealing with reality. It's not okay to trade that in for discouragement, because what we do now, what we do today, this week, this month, these next few months is going to determine what's around the bend.
Ooh. Okay. Wait, Steve, because you both have touched on this, but I'd love to talk about it a little bit more. You've said, one of you said, I thought it was Steve, but now I'm thinking it was Rick, that there's a window of opportunity that's open. And you just alluded to this again. So could individuals be having ideas, collaborations, you know, new things coming in? And are you saying this is the time to take action on the things that are aligning with your vision or ideal that you have been wanting to bring into structure, and now there's opportunity to do that? Are you saying this is a window of opportunity to bring those kind of things in, and that if we don't, we could lose the opportunity?
Almost. Because of the dance of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto over the last 60, 70 years, Uranus has always been sextile. Neptune's always been sextile Pluto. And when Uranus has been conjunct, sextile, square, trine, any of the others, all three of them have. There's been times in the last 60 or 70 years where Saturn has affected all three of the outer planets. Not many, but some. So this is not a completely novel situation, except that for the first time, Saturn is opening up gateways. Saturn is like the gatekeeper, to use a Rick Levine expression, to open us up into the more transpersonal side of the outer planets. However, what if it's also the other way round? What if the outer planets are also acting upon Saturn and helping it transform its boundaries into something more pliant and more flexible, so that we no longer need to be limited by the old structures that we've lived under for many thousands of years? So when you say to me, is this a time for action, bearing in mind the longevity of the relatively brief period we're in, I say no, not yet, because at the moment the dinosaurs are gorging upon themselves.
Well said.
Once that period is over, then the world's going to be going, well, okay, so the old's collapsed. Where's the new? And that's where the astrologers will be at their most helpful.
What if the opportunities that are coming in are outside of the structure of the dinosaurs already? Like, if there are things coming in that are already enabling us to play in a different playground and create things that are just not even beholden to the old, are those the kind of things that could make sense to put some energy and direction toward?
Well, you're talking about the singularity? I mean,
Here,
that's soon.
AI, here we come, AR, augmented reality, artificial superintelligence. I mean, all these things are sitting out there. I think, Amanda, that we're going to look back at the weekend of April 4th, 5th, 6th, when we get the first exact hit of this. And so much else is happening on that weekend, because Mars is in that picture too, because Mars is basically sextile. It's squaring Uranus, and it's sextiling Uranus, and it's squaring Eris, and it's trining Saturn, all on the same day on April 4th. And so we'll look back at the weekend of April 4th, 5th, and 6th, and we're going to get a glimpse of what we're going to see later in the summer, when everything has moved into fire and air rather than the water and earth where it is now. I think I agree with Steve. I think that, you know, the retrograde thing, I envision this as like you're driving down a freeway. Let's say you're in Los Angeles and you're in 6 lanes of traffic, and you're in the far left lane, and your exit is all of a sudden coming up and it's on the far right. And you go, holy crap, how am I going to get over 5 lanes? And you somehow, you know, go lane by lane by lane by lane, and you pull off on that exit, and you're driving along and you go, whew. And all of a sudden you realize that your exit is 5 lanes over further than you thought. And you go, wait a minute, I thought I just changed lanes. And now the exit's on the left and you got to go back the other way. And then on the final third and direct, it's almost like you get the same repeat again. And so it's what happens in phase 1 is like the opening volley of a tennis match. By phase 2, the retrogrades, the serve has been returned and things may be different. You may be seeing things from the other side. Like Steve said, all the RE words, the review, the reconsider, all those words come into play. And then you have what happened around the April 4th, 5th, 6th weekend, and what happened also then in the mid-August. That then becomes fuel for when Saturn and Neptune both move for the third and final time, or for the second time. They move from Taurus into Gemini, which is where Uranus is moving, and from Pisces into Aries, which is where Saturn and Neptune are moving, and they all then make their trines and sextiles for the third and final time, with Pluto having grounded itself, if you can think of it, grounding itself in Aquarius. And so that's when the final action is going to begin to pick up. It's after the spring, the late winter, early spring of 2026, but it's going to be 26, 27, 28, where the things solidify. And that's, by that time, we will lose the opportunity to make the changes that we are making now. Not that things won't always recycle, they do, but this is the moment. And when I say this, I don't mean April. I mean April, May, June, July, August, September, and then it begins to kind of come to a crescendo by next January, February. And after that, I think we're locked into wherever we are for a while.
I have to agree. I have to agree with you, Rick. I think that this is possibly the most significant period, astrologically speaking, in human history, or at least in the last 10,000 years.
We've had this discussion, Amanda, before also, because it just makes me sick to my stomach how every month, every astrologer in the world, except for Steve and me,
Yes.
every astrologer in the world says, this is the most amazing month ever. This is the most amazing full moon ever. Oh my God, this has never happened. I mean, this one has really never happened before. We are at a point in evolution where the combination of the technology, the social media that allows consciousness to change on a dime. I mean, we've never been at a point where the communication is so instantaneous, where if we were talking about this back in the 1800s, you could have people, rebelling on the streets of Berlin and Rome and in London, not knowing that anything was happening anywhere else in the world. And now this kind of global, transit, it's almost like we're in this kind of cosmic feedback loop, almost like a Grateful Dead concert, where you have all these amplifiers aiming the music back onto itself, but it's cosmic music. We've never been at a place like this ever.
And if you need evidence of this, only 30 years ago, who had the internet? Just 30 years ago. Who even had an email 30 years ago? Well, one or two people did.
I did. I just counted on my fingers.
I definitely did not.
95 05 15 25. I had my first email address in 94.
Mine was 99. Okay.
I went to college in 96 and they offered an email address and I was like, what's that? And why would I want that? No idea. Okay. So because these are outer planets, we're talking about collective shifts for sure. How's this going to show up in people's individual lives, and what qualities can they cultivate to take advantage of the opportunities?
I just want to say that, yes, they're outer planets, but Saturn is the kind of intermediate point. At the conference that Steve and I are doing in Aubrey Park in north of London in May, one of the talks that I'm giving is about the depowering, the disintegration of Saturn. Saturn used to be the king of the mountain. Saturn right now is it's no longer the singular gatekeeper. It's more like the intersection or the inflection point between the external consciousness, the cosmic, and the personal. And so Saturn here has a major role to play as it brings those things into our individual lives. Didn't mean to just jump in and take over, Steve, but yeah.
That's potent. And Steve talked about this a little bit earlier, that the role of Saturn is actually potentially changing, that the influence these outer planets are having on Saturn is changing Saturn's role.
But Amanda, you asked, what can individuals do about it?
Yeah.
We've been fed television, radio, internet, newspapers, media in this last 100 years in a way that's got built to such a state now that nobody knows what truth is anymore. There is no truth anymore. So that brings an energy of distortion, of confusion, of escapism, and of lies. So what can individuals do? Well, when your back's against the wall, you come out fighting, or you lay down and die, one of the two. And I'm trying to imbue all of my clients with the idea that, yeah, thoughts are one thing, feelings are another, intuition is even something else. But underlying all of them is animal gut instinct. We live in an animal body which gets immediate, in nanosecond gut instinct. And by the time the thoughts, feelings, and intuitions have got hold of it, it's gone. It's what other people call our BS filters. You just know when something's right, intrinsically and instinctively. And I'm trying to get my clients to really relate to their gut instinct, because that is ours. It is, no one can change that. No one can influence that. It is yours alone. And that never lets you down.
So Arthur C. Clarke, the guy who wrote 2001 Space Odyssey, and he's the guy who invented or in science fiction imagined geosynchronous satellites that now are the basis of our communication network. Arthur C. Clarke wrote, "We now stand at the turning point between two eras," and that's era, not error. "Behind us is a past to which we can never return." This is so important because there's so many people who are so afraid of the unknown around the next bend that people are wanting to go back and make things the way they were, make things fantastic like they were before all this stuff hit. And there is no going back. And the problem is there's no quick and easy solution to our current complex problems. We no longer can expect a superhero to just come in and save the day. That's what people were hoping for. We're experiencing transformations that have no historical precedent, period. Accordingly, it's up to each and every one of us, like Steve said, as if we're backed up against the wall, because in a way we are. It's up to every one of us to stay alert, to watch for meaningful signs, to act in mindful manners with kindness and compassion, because, and I know I sound like a broken record sometimes, thinking cosmically is a waste of energy unless we act locally. It's the little things that we do now that are going to add up to the larger social changes that we seek.
And that is where the astrologers have such a vital role in the future of humanity in just this next 2 or 3 years.
Agree.
What a time to be an astrologer.
What time to be
alive.
What time to be a human? Do you know the saying, "May you live in interesting times," from the Chinese, was actually a curse? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And we live in interesting times.
We do. Okay, what are you two doing personally to stay alert, watch for signs, like trust your gut? Are there practices, are there things that you're committed to make sure that you're staying open to, listening to the inner guidance?
Well, you can't share water with someone who needs it unless you have it in your cup. And that becomes, this is not about, selfishness. In some ways, it's about selflessness, and the selflessness begins with taking care of ourselves. And that doesn't mean being greedy. It doesn't mean taking from others. It means making sure that your cup has water in it, which means taking care of business, survival. We have to survive day by day by day. This is Saturn, in order to think about anything cosmic. I mean, that's the first thing in all of this.
Also, I think that words like integrity, dignity, and particularly authenticity are wonderful things to aspire to. And whilst I personally feel I can never reach as high on those levels as I want to, I'm always getting better. Mm. And that's why I'm trying to encourage other people into becoming as well. Become more real inside yourself. Learn how to love yourself a lot more. And don't be worried what anyone else says or thinks.
As you know, I do a regular monthly forecast, and my monthly forecast for April has the title of Boiling Point. And there's, the author Rebecca Solnit wrote that the boiling point of water is straightforward, but the boiling point of societies is mysterious. We're at a boiling point. And no one, including Steve and I, well, maybe Steve has the answer, but none of us know what's around the bend. The idea of astrologer as predictor is gone, because this bend is so bold, so large, so huge. You can predict what's around a corner if you've been around that corner 100 times before. This is a bend we've never been around. There's that whole idea that if you put a frog in cool water and gradually warm it up, it'll become adapted to the heat and it'll boil to death. And then if you throw that frog or another frog into boiling water, it'll struggle and to try to get out. Well, we're in a political situation right now around the world where one side of the coin says, we're in boiling water, everyone's freaking out, survive, jump out of the boiling water, make whatever change you have to, because you're going to die if you don't. And then we have another whole political movement that just says, no, we're going to be okay. We're going to make small incremental changes. But you know what? We'll just all boil to death. It'll just take a little longer. I think Steve said this really clearly. And I think in your question, Amanda, you said it also. The solution to what's going on right now is not in this or that. It's not in red or blue or black and white or yes or no or free this or pent up that. All of that stuff is bullshit. It's all gone. Something's going to come that in some way is going to make us realize, and I've been saying this for months, for a year or so, that we're all in this together. It's like we're all marooned on this tiny little island, and we're going to all either figure out a way to get along and get out together, or we're not together. It's not about me versus you. It's about all of us, the 99% of humans versus the 1% that has taken our lives from us and in some way has kind of commandeered us into thinking that I'm against you and he's against her and they're against. That's all bullshit. That's got to go.
Is it reasonable to think that Uranus is playing a very strong role in this because Uranus is bringing in innovations and things that we can't even imagine to transcend this right, wrong, black, white, red, blue sort of polarization that we've been in?
Every time Uranus has been proactive in human affairs over the last 2.5 centuries, there has been some type of revolution, whether it be a literal, a violent, an economic, a spiritual, but there's always been some type of revolution. And now I think it's time to actually add another constant into that, to add a hyphen into it. And I'm quoting Terence McKenna here, who is one of the heroes I shouldn't have, but I do. It's time for a re-evolution as opposed to a revolution. It's time for an upgrade in consciousness.
And a lot of people are fearful, and a lot of astrologers are predicting war. Every time in the United States history, every time Uranus has moved from Taurus into Gemini, we found ourselves in the American Revolution and the Civil War and World War II. But we are at war. And see, the thing is that the old world in war, people beat each other up, whether they did it individually.
Yeah. And now it's all viruses and
that's right. And then we did it more with these tools of mass destruction. Well, this war, as Uranus moves into Gemini, as it will this summer, is an information war. We're fighting for who controls the idea of what humanity will become. That's the war, and it's already flaring up physically all around the planet. But this is not about a physical war. It's about a meta-physical war.
And that is why people like you and me and the other astrologers at this conference that we're doing are so out there at the moment, trying to say to people, think for yourselves and use astrology, because astrology is apolitical, aenomical. It has no interest in bias or judgment. It just is.
Astrology is it's like a GPS system. It doesn't tell you where you're going. Astrology is like GPS for time. It just tells you when you're going, And so from that standpoint, astrology is in some ways the missing piece to what we already have with GPS. And it gives us the ability to understand the trajectory that we're on and where the key points are. And this is a key point. There's no question about it at all.
That's why we're having this conference at this moment in time. The right people are going to be there, and it's going to be possibly one of the most important astrological gatherings of all time.
One of the outstanding, I would say maybe someone who dwarfs Steve and I in one way, in many ways, is PhD historian, astrologer Nick Campion, who runs the master's program in archetypal astrology, which is really astrology integrated into the UK academic system. And I've known Nick, Steve and I have both known Nick for decades. And he'll be doing a keynote talk on this. And he is the guy who is the singular, or maybe the real authority on world astrology, the history of astrology's impact on human history, and it's really exciting that he's going to be at this conference. It's totally exciting.
Yeah, totally. Totally
Okay,
free.
let's get logistics. So we're putting the link for this conference in the show notes. What are the dates? Where is it? What are the nuts and bolts of this conference?
The dates are the 2nd to the 5th of May, 2025. The venue is a 4-star hotel about 20 minutes by train from Northwest London, from Euston or St Pancras in Northwest London. It's myself, Rick, Nick Campion, Penny Thornton.
Tell people who Penny Thornton is.
Penny Thornton has been doing astrology at least as long as Rick, and a lot longer than me.
Does she
And
have
I've
any?
been doing it
Did she
45
ever
years.
have any famous clients that anyone might know?
It is a well-established fact that Penny Thornton was the astrologer for Princess Diana.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Beyond
was an
that,
easy.
I'm not going
That
to
was an
say
easy
anything
serve,
because it's up to
Steve.
Penny to say that for herself. But she makes no secret of that. She doesn't boast about it. It is not, if ever, in her cap.
It's just what class of astrologer she is.
She's going to be an inner circle astrologer next year too.
Oh,
we're so
awesome.
excited to have her on our roster too.
But to have Penny Thornton and Rick Levine and Nick Campion, Steve Judd, Alexis Trenoweth, and special
And Alex Trenoweth is also an educator, someone who's written about the adolescence astrology. She's one of her magical things that she's done a lot of work on. That and I think this is one of the talks she'll be giving at the conference, is how people in movies who we know for starring roles have charts that are so in such great affinity with the people that they're playing. They're the roles that we remember. It's a brilliant concept.
Wow.
She's also done more than almost anyone else in the astrological world in getting astrology into schools.
And also a lot of work with the East-West. She was the person behind 2 conferences in India, one of which I spoke at, one of which I was awarded the International Astrologer of the Year award in Calcutta. Kind of a crazy thing, but no, there's only there's 5 of us. But the magic of this really symposium, not a conference, is that it's going to be intimate. There's not going to be there's going to be enough people there that it's going to be an entity, but the faculty is going to be accessible. We have events where there's going to be interaction. It's not just people on stage blabbing at a large audience.
Indeed, that's it. It's interactive.
Yes, and I know you're about 50% sold out already. So if
if
you're interested in this, jump, because it's going to sell out. And you're going to miss this opportunity. So we were talking about jumping into some things.
And we're going to be showing episode 0, episode 2, and episode 3 of the documentary on the history of Western astrology there. And that's going to be a world debut.
And many of you have supported the creation of that documentary. Many in our Astrology Hub audience have contributed gifts to that. So you're going to be the first to see these. Are they finished, Steve? Or are they like the prototype?
Episode 0 is now 99.99% finished. There's 2 spelling mistakes. Okay. In the credits. That's it. Wow. Episode 2 on Greece and Greek astrology is now about 50% complete and will be ready to show at the symposium. Episode 3 on Rome, we will show at least a rough cut, if not the finished item. And episode 1 on prehistory, as in the stone circles, the bone calendars, the cave paintings, everything pre-Greece in Western astrology, including Babylonian, Chaldean, Egyptian, Sumerian. We hope to have a rough cut of that, but I'm not promising anything.
I get the sense that this docuseries is going to become required, fundamental, foundational education for any astrology student.
Synchronicities are happening daily with this at the moment. When we struggle for weeks, and we really struggle when dealing with big corporate companies, you go, yes, okay, we can do this for you, but it's going to cost you this much and this much. We're going, well, we haven't got any choice. And then at the last minute, at the very last minute, the other day, I had a phone call with someone who said, yes, we run a female-led company that deals with hosting, marketing, distributing. And that conversation happened at the moment that Neptune moved into Aries. So much synchronicity around this. The universe wants this to happen.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's things happening like that in your lives too. And I think if there's anything to take away from this conversation, pay attention, be alert, internalize the things that are coming through. And really, I mean, this is the time.
This is the time where people who are astrologically knowledgeable, astrological students, astrological practitioners, or just those who have a mild interest to it, need to step up and start speaking their truth and inspiring other people to trust their own selves. And it's people like Rick and Penny, who have been doing this for 10 years longer than me, and I've been doing it 45 years, who are at the forefront of this wave of change. It is our time.
I love Steve's biological metaphor of being backed up against the wall and biologically having to do something, what I call reaching that boiling point. And, you know, many people, because there's so much unpredictability and unexpected change, and people are being driven towards extreme responses. On one hand, many people are just shutting down, overwhelmed, can't do anything. Why bother? Disillusioned and discouraged. On the other hand, there are a lot of people who are being triggered into a sense of panic that's like propelling them into action. And although it's understandable to spiral into despair, denial on one side, or panic on the other, it's our current engagement with humanity itself, not sitting at a computer killing aliens on video games, but it's the current engagement with humanity that's going to ultimately determine the trajectory or the outcome of what's going on now.
I'm in North Yorkshire at the moment on a holiday, and every night I've been stepping outside the door of where I'm staying, and I've been looking up and I've been seeing Mars and Jupiter, Pollux and Castor, Orion, and Andromeda, and particularly the horns of Taurus. And it's like I take my students out under the stars and go, look, this is a lived experience. This is not just about screens and books and charts. You're living under the stars, with the stars. Feel the energy of it. It's a lived thing.
Steve, I have quoted the apprenticeship is over many, many, many times. And that's what I'm hearing from you guys. Like, this is the time your design, the mission that you came here to live is being activated. This is the time to listen and to do it. So I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm so glad you are helping to translate the GPS system to us so that we can understand it and give us the alert that, like, hey, no, you're sensing that this is a big time. It is a big time.
It is.
This is a big moment. Yeah. So you guys, if you want to be surrounded by this kind of energy, this supportive energy, this amount of insight and guidance from some of the best astrologers literally in the world, this is going to be the event to be at. It is May 2nd through 5th. Again, we'll drop those links down. Make sure you make a decision relatively quickly, because it is going to sell out and it's already 50% sold out. So I am so honored to have you both on this platform. Once again, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your insights, your foresight. I mean, even what you just said, Rick, about this bend is so extreme that really no one can see beyond it. But we know that it's there. And both of you have given us some very tangible ways to cultivate things within ourselves so that we don't need to know what's beyond the bend. We just need to keep following the blueprint that is within us. So thank you for this. Thank you for this opportunity. I hope many of you will get together in person. I love online, obviously. There's nothing like being together in person. I hope that you take advantage of this opportunity to do that if you are in a position to do so. And otherwise, best of luck with this event. I am very sad that I am not going to be there. Like, this is just talking to you guys like, oh my God, how am I
Well, in spirit, you will be there.
Yes, I will be there. Yes. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for being a part of our community. Looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode. We'll see you soon. Take care.